of the 2.6 billion people who live on under $2 a day, 75% of them live in rural areas. And agriculture is their main economic activity. They're producers of food, but they struggle to feed their own families. And they also struggle to generate a reliable income to invest in education and health. And so we saw this morning all kinds of statistics about malnutrition and how Africa is lagging behind. Roughly 35% of the population in Africa is malnourished. You could say the same thing about extreme poverty. And what I didn't have a map for, but what is also highly correlated, is agricultural productivity. So Africa has roughly 1/3 the agricultural productivity as the rest of the world. And that inability to produce food at the local level reinforces this loop between poverty and malnutrition. And so while there aren't any silver bullet answers, we know that agriculture has to be a fundamental part of this solution. The World Bank estimates that agriculture is twice as effective as any other sector in reducing poverty. Those are jobs not just at the farm level, but all the way up the value chain: processing, logistics, transport. Agriculture can help to both create wealth and, of course, create food surpluses and replace the need for imported food aid. We also know that finance is a big barrier. So the large brown bars here are agriculture as a percent of GDP in 10 African countries. And the much smaller orange bars are the percent of credit that's going into the agricultural sector. And that gap there reflects a massive underinvestment of capital into agriculture and the potential impact that agriculture can have. And that's further confounded by another gap, the so-called missing middle. Businesses that are too large to qualify, too large to rely on microfinance, but too small, considered too risky, don't have the formal assets to access finance from commercial banks. And those businesses, small and growing businesses, create the majority of new jobs in wealthy nations. But they're not in developing countries. And one of the main reasons is because they're unable to access credit. So when we think about how to address poverty and malnutrition, a lot of the solution has to be at the intersection between small and growing businesses and agriculture. And that's where Root Capital focuses. So Root Capital is a nonprofit social investment fund. We seek to grow rural prosperity in Africa and Latin America by providing capital in the form of loans, $25,000 up to $2 million, delivering financial training, and strengthening market connections so that these small and growing businesses can both improve incomes in the countryside, but also create more food for domestic consumption. And just to give an example, the Musasa Cooperative is a farmers cooperative in Rwanda. It's about 1,600 coffee farmers. And Musasa has been around for about 10 years. And in 2005, they'd found an excellent market for their coffee. Starbucks wanted to buy from them, but they couldn't get a loan from a local bank. So we ended up doing a loan based on their future sales. We knew that Starbucks was going to purchase from them 6 months from the time when they needed a loan. We lent a percentage of that money up front. And when they exported their product to Starbucks, we deducted the principal and interest and took the difference. In essence, we're able to make a loan where there's no formal guarantee. This is fundamentally relationship finance. It's a type of approach to finance that's worked very well at microfinance, and thinking about how to do it at a larger, more formal level. Musasa has since grown, more than doubling its sales. We provided over $1 million in credit over the past 5 years, and livelihoods have increased significantly. And you can see the testimonial from Bertha, one of the Musasa Co-op members here. And this same model works very well for export chains and other cash crops: cashews, cotton, mangoes, products that have demand internationally, where we can use that demand as a form of collateral and lend to those businesses. And this year we'll do about $120 million in credit to about 220 businesses in Africa and Latin America. And those businesses are helping to break this cycle, to convert poverty and malnutrition into prosperity and nutrition for about 250,000 rural households. And at the same time, we know that financing high-value cash crops for export is not the solution to malnutrition. We need to figure out ways to do the same thing for staple crops. Crops like maize, rice, finger millet that are consumed by domestic populations. And more than that, we also know that food is not the same thing as nutrition. So it's not just financing at the primary production level, but all along the value chain to companies working in country that are able to take raw materials, add value, serve the local market. And those businesses face the same types of challenges as our clients that are exporting coffee or cocoa. They lack access to finance, they typically have limited managerial capacity, and they need connections to the market. But they have other challenges as well. It's much more difficult to take finger millet and turn it into a nutritious flour than to take coffee, depulp it, put it on a boat to Europe. And so we need to work with partners who can help on the technological innovation side, partners that can work in business development services, partners that can help local African businesses to be able to serve this food market. These are some of the partners we've been working with, including Gain, Partners in Food Solutions. And one of the recent loans that we've done is to a Tanzanian processor of finger millet. It sources from 500 farmers in the Morogoro region of Tanzania. It processes that finger millet and sells this product on the local market. And then we have another entrepreneur in the room, Madame Konete, and she was good enough to lend me one of her products. So she's sourcing locally in Ivory Coast, and producing an infant cereal that's fortified with iron, zinc, vitamins, again, addressing both sides of the equation. Income for farmers, healthy products for the local market. Thanks.